Let me just make sure I can turn off your opinions. Manzi, can you go ahead and start saying something?
Boy.
So we have a less than stellar host today.
There we go. Okay, I now know which opinion mic is Manzi's, so I can turn it off at any moment he gets too problematic.
Welcome back, folks. This is the Philosophy Club Radio Hour.
Oh,
You're tuning in to KDUX Web Radio.
Broadcast live from Richland College in Dallas, Texas. We're the voice of Richland College. Views expressed on this show are Manzi's own unless otherwise stated and do not reflect the opinion of KDUX Web Radio, Richland College, the DCCD, or humanity as a whole.
Can we get sued for that joking disclaimer? Or
I don't know, maybe.
No, only I can.
Which would be kind of funny.
Which is
no.
It'd be funny because there's nothing left to take.
Oh my god.
Anyways,
oh wow.
Glad to be here, folks.
Damn.
Well,
glad to be here.
Well, Manzi, my mom is single now. So.
Shall we make it?
Why
would something?
Hey, well, I mean.
Why would you? Okay.
Outback's a lovely place. All right. Well, yeah. So, Dusty, I'll leave it up to you. Feel free to introduce the guests and
all right.
The topics, which
well,
you know nothing of.
I still don't know the name of the beautiful young man on the left in a blue flannel shirt. So, if you please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ryan Cruz, and I'm dead inside.
All right, great ethos.
Great ethos. The pathos.
I'm Dusty.
I might have spelled
and I used to be in a philosophy class, and now all I do is lament on the fact that I can't write anymore. And that's all the introductions. So let's get to the requack. What happened?
Is that the case? I'm Professor Manzi, folks. I've perhaps foolishly allowed the inmate to run the asylum.
The inmate.
That would be Dusty Rhodes over here.
Dusty Rhodes.
I only hope that he's capable of steering the ship, piloting as it will. This is a pilot of sorts, piloting student guests. Now, you know, our host should be aware of the topics. So I say topics plural because we had two Philosophy Club meetings since the last radio show. Because last Thursday we had no show because the campus was closed. So we've got a lot to re-quack, Ryan. So
don't look at me and say that. Don't do that.
So the last meeting was focused on loyalty, but a specific kind of loyalty. I believe the question was, is loyalty reducible to respect? And is respect, if loyalty in fact is based on respect, is said respect based on fear? Which is to say, can you have a loyalty based on something other than fear or other than respect? Or maybe another way to put it would be this. The standards by which you respect somebody, do they necessarily imply fear? Or could they simply be things like awe or admiration or just respect for a talent, maybe envy, not exactly fear? There was that. And then the week prior to that, what did we talk about?
It was religion versus nature. Is there a spiritual aspect to human nature?
Interesting. All right. So again, lots of things to cover. What we like to do is try to stay as recent as possible. So maybe we could begin with loyalty, and if we've got time, maybe go back to the lost meeting, whose discussion will live on only in the memories.
I heard you talking about a fear and loyalty. Did you guys not talk about the risk-reward aspect of being loyal to someone? Is that if you're loyal to someone, you can get something out of it?
I came in late because I was voting. If that did happen, I missed it.
I don't believe that ever came up. Actually,
it seems like a very odd thing to not touch on, because I mean, a lot of the time, I guess say you're a knight swearing fealty to a king, you're swearing fealty to a king not only because probably your parents did it, but also because you want protection, you want a job, you want titles, you want land. You're getting something out of it, and sure, you can also fear the king, but I feel like the biggest motivator to do that would be selfish aspects, which isn't,
That's
wrong
really
morally.
Yeah. So wait, but why wouldn't it be wrong morally if it's basically a quid pro quo basis for loyalty? Because loyalty is supposed to imply sort of some sentimentality to it. No, like I would sacrifice myself for this idea or this cause or this leader. Unless you think that self-sacrifice could somehow be motivated selfishly. Like, now I will live on as the one. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, self-sacrifice is oftentimes very... it can be a selfish thing. A lot of, shooters, I'd say their self-sacrifice is definitely selfish, so they can get their message out there, so that they can
Oh, I see.
perpetuate
Interesting.
more terror. It's very much a selfish thing.
That just goes along to the idea of like what exactly you can be loyal to. Like, okay, when a doctor takes the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm, is he doing that and he like, you know, causes no harm? Is he loyal to the craft, to the oath, to Hippocrates, to
That's a great question.
like
Well, he's probably loyal to the fact that if he doesn't, he might be sued for malpractice.
fair?
Well, maybe nowadays.
But-
Maybe nowadays,
Sorry.
as opposed to back when we were leeching people.
yeah, well,
I mean-
pretty much. What's up? I'm sorry, Ryan.
I'm just like, okay, there was that one shooter, like, I forgot where it was, but it was basically to show some type of racist view or something. He was basically trying to, like, get a race war to initiate with one of his shootings. I forgot exactly why or what the exact details were. But the point is that based entirely off of selfishness, that these are his views and he's trying to get them out there? Or is it some type of loyalty to a belief? Or both? Because it's very hard to just discern something like that as either or, so I would definitely consider it both, but I don't know. What do y'all think?
Well, it's rarely ever in anything the case of either or. Most of the time, there is definitely a second aspect to like really anything. But for stuff like that, I'd say it's loyalty to the idea, that doing this will perpetuate a race war, loyalty to the notion of a race war, and I guess the
Yeah.
delusionally perceived benefits or I don't know, retribution that would come of it.
Okay, but don't you think that being loyal to your own ideas is just another way of saying I'm selfish?
Yeah, but
I'm
I
loyal
mean,
to my own values, my own beliefs, my own ideas. How is that not selfishness?
Yeah, but
they're
what's
yours.
really wrong with selfishness?
Well, here's the thing. I think a lot of people at the club meeting thought that selfishness was the opposite of loyalty, because loyalty means serving somebody other than yourself.
Well, you can still be selfish and be loyal. That's what like loyalty in, I guess, the animal kingdom is in a way.
There is a
Especially if there's like a pride of lions, you'll be loyal to your, I guess, leader of the pride.
Leader
Because
of the
you get
pack.
because you get protection, you get food, and
boy.
also because you've grown to attachment.
Yeah, but that's instinctive, you can argue, and so that's not really a kind of loyalty that's worth praising, because it doesn't require any sort of rational reflection. It's just they do what comes naturally. It seems like true loyalty, especially self-sacrifice, implies you to do something that is very unnatural, which is sacrifice yourself, which is maybe not the exact same thing as self-preservation. So human loyalty seems to be going against our animal instincts by putting something or someone or some group before our individual existence. Now, the question becomes, could you do that sort of thing for selfish reasons? Could you be the self-sacrificial lamb with the understanding that, I don't know, maybe one day you will go to heaven or go to a place with whatever it is, a bunch of virgins or something? And again, I'm only bringing this up as a laundry list to say there seem to be incentives on the deepest, most religious levels for your loyalty. The loyalty seems to be built in with this idea that, personally speaking, you will experience satisfaction in heaven, however you might manifest that or describe it. So, I mean, this is to your point, Dusty.
Yeah.
Is that it seems like maybe loyalty is inherently, on some level, it has to appeal to a selfish drive or ambition, such that loyalty becomes your personal goal. I strive to be a loyal soldier or a loyal employee or a loyal member of the family, because you individually feel like you couldn't be as happy if you can't think of yourself like that.
It's interesting trying to discern like the components of loyalty itself.
Yeah.
It does, I guess it does take a sense of like selfishness as well as, well, fear or loyalty comparably to it.
How so?
Like, okay, when, let's say a person is loyal to someone out of fear, they're loyal because of fear, but also a sense of selfishness in a sense to survive. is it selfish to have feelings of self-preservation? I mean, self-preservation itself is inherently a selfish thing because it is all about the self. It's all about you surviving. So, I guess selfishness in the most minor... Orlando, you get in here
Orlando,
right now.
come in here.
Orlando,
come in here.
Get in here right now. Oh my God, Dusty's running.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't.
We don't let that happen. We got a late introduction.
Welcome, my
It's
dude.
the real head of the show is
testing,
finally
testing.
here.
Wait, this isn't even working.
Yeah, it is.
Blame-
We heard you.
Now we can blame Dusty.
Oh, the headphones. That seems like more of a you problem, dude.
Okay, hello, testing, testing.
We hear you, Orlando.
Welcome to the show.
Oh yeah, it's good
Orlando
to be here.
needs
Glad
no
to have
introduction, known
Feels so
throughout
welcome.
Richland as the Chad, simply.
No.
So let's get back to talking about loyalty and, I guess, selfishness and altruism.
Ooh, Orlando, what do you think are the components of loyalty?
Oof, this is hard. This is not fair. I just got here. Components of loyalty. I mean, I was kind of going along with what we were saying in the meeting, like in terms of like maybe a respect, a certain amount of fear, and someone else said I think finance, but I think it means kind of circumstance too.
Okay.
So those
Yeah.
are kind of like what I'm going with. I don't know about you guys.
Well, yeah, we were discussing whether or not fear is a constituent part of loyalty, or more specifically, if you define loyalty like pure examples of loyalty as somehow self-sacrificial in nature, whether or not self-sacrifice can be somehow selfishly motivated.
What did you mean by circumstance?
Circumstance, because
Steamrolls my
someone mentioned that, well, you don't maintain any kind of loyalty to a job necessarily because you're only kind of motivated by money. And so in that instance, maybe you're not necessarily fearful or you're not necessarily respecting of them, but you're kind of more motivated by this one thing. And so maybe circumstance in terms of loyalty is kind of this idea of like, well, like your maybe like your outlook on the person or the outlook on yourself. But then
Ooh,
maybe that
that's
goes back to respect, so that doesn't even make sense.
Or maybe self-respect.
Huh. That doesn't make sense.
I'm trying to help you out. Buddy. No, I think you are making sense because circumstances tend to dictate people's decisions in life. Now, I'm not trying to say that people aren't free and they're determined, but it's like your matrix of possibilities are more or less dependent upon the circumstances in your day-to-day, or just generally speaking, like what you just deem to be possible. So based upon sort of those practical reflections, as opposed to delusional reflections, you have to decide for yourself what are the goals to which you will be loyal, which is to say, what are the values that you either accept or reject or create? What are the ones hierarchically, like speaking, like ranking them? What will you be loyal to? And if you are able to decide on those matters and then proceed accordingly, pursue them, aren't you creating yourself? Isn't that how you create your identity in your life? By choosing values of your own accord that you will remain loyal to in deed and action and word? Isn't that how you individuate?
What the?
Well, isn't that really how you make choices for everything? Is you like determine it based on a, I guess, basis of loyalty? Like, I'm gonna go to the restroom because I'm loyal to my body.
Hey,
I'm gonna eat because I'm loyal to the health of my body. I'm gonna drink water because I'm loyal to my health.
Where is the line drawn?
Well, that doesn't sound
There is
crazy to me.
there's never a line. Everything is applicable to everything if you stretch it far enough.
I still
Sounds
think-
kind of relativistic, but go off, I guess.
I still think it goes back to this idea of obedience. You know what I mean? Because I think we're kind of giving a positive connotation to loyalty, but is it always positive?
Oh, good. Yeah.
We
Could
were
it be the
talking-
seeds of
We were
exploitation?
talking earlier about the like physical like risk reward component
I thought he
of
was going to talk
loyalty. Like, is that out of a lot of
talk about it.
relationships with loyalty, you get something out of it, whether that be something like physically tangible or like or some kind of more ethereal reward, like a title or property
Yeah.
or genuine human affection.
or
Yeah, I was
genuine
gonna say,
human
that's more
affection.
ethereal.
Yeah, or affection.
My headphones are messing up.
I thought like he was going to start talking about like, well, the Nazis were loyal to Hitler, weren't they? That
Why did you remind him of that?
I know.
Listen,
See the spark in his eye. His lips are. He's moistening his lips. He's getting ready.
What is that supposed to mean, dude? Okay, I just like history, all right?
I'm living for Orlando's smile in the back. He gets it.
Oh my gosh, this guy.
these are great. So, Dusty, it sounds like what you're saying is, can loyalty be synonymous with prioritization or prioritizing?
I mean, if you're like going through a pure utilitarian view, yeah. If you're like looking at it through, I guess, utilitarian, like cut and dry, evolution, biology, chemistry, yeah, you could say that. But there is, like, if you want to look at it in a more interesting and more philosophical sense, there's also the wibbly wobbly spiritual, emotional, and just, you know, X factor human connection
I
that
see.
goes to loyalty.
Interesting. Yeah.
Back to the 5 aspects of a person that I swear I will get somewhere in a philosophical book one day. I will write it out.
It seems to me like, look, that's not. You can call it utilitarian, but that's not necessarily an insult. It seems like just on a base level. Somebody here?
Who is it? Oh,
Oh, hey,
I don't know who that is.
welcome.
you're.
Hello, person.
Do I know you? Jack, you've changed so much.
Stop it,
um,
Jack. I thought.
somebody's commandeered the studio.
The stereo.
This, very Mysterio.
Mark, please get her out of the stereo.
Get her out of the studio. Okay, here's why I say it's not necessarily an insult, because it seems like, again, on a very fundamental level, why you do anything is because you think on some level it's valuable. Now, that value need not translate in, again, more tangible rewards, but it could nonetheless be something that you feel is going to enhance your quality of life, your quality of existence. You know, for example, let's look at Orlando. Orlando texted
Boy.
me, and he said, I'm not going to make it today. And so it seemed like he was choosing to be loyal to something else, maybe other priorities that he had in mind.
Yeah, my stomach, because I'm very hungry.
There you go. And yet, here he is. You know, he's remained loyal to the values that he set out, even though maybe initially he had decided otherwise. You're free to edit. You're free to reevaluate.
Mind you, I was definitely insulting
Oh, yes.
utilitarianism.
I know you were.
Exactly.
You've
Alright,
done it
cool.
before.
Yeah, it's dumb.
I don't know why you'd say that. It's in my opinion, the most sensible ethical theory.
Okay, boomer.
How dare
Good
you?
dang it.
Oh, God.
And so the point being is this, that I think we've all experienced that. Have you ever been really tired, but you also need to study for an exam? Are you going to be loyal to the fact that you think you need a requisite amount of sleep, especially if a doctor says, hey, you got some things happening here. You need to, at the very least, get 6 hours of sleep.
Yeah,
but you're
right.
also like, well, I want to be loyal to doing well in this class.
Nah,
so
just sleep. School's not worth it.
If I don't know
you
it by
sleep in
midnight,
class.
Manzi, just so you know, I never studied for your class.
if I don't know
Let's
it
show
by
it.
midnight, I don't know it. All right.
Yeah, there you go.
Dude, that is how I live my life.
That's why he knows nothing. All right, so joking.
Sounds like Socrates,
I'm
but
not, I
okay.
agree. That's why I'm a dummy.
Exactly.
I keep going off. I'm sorry.
Well, you're good. And so that's the idea, is that I think every day our loyalties are tested by ourselves, especially when it comes to making promises or keeping promises. Are you loyal to the word you give to people?
So, is this necessarily loyalty, or is this just rationality? I feel like we're overlapping the two.
Possibly.
Well, like this is exactly what I was talking about. What are all the components? Why would you do that?
It's the Cheeto Man.
What are all the
And
components?
I've turned off Manzi's mic.
What are all the components of loyalty itself? Like, I guess we've compiled. It does take a sense of selfishness. It does take a sense of.
I don't know if I agree with
I
that,
think
though.
I think what it is like we're using loyalty as almost as if this thing that we do, but I think it's just it's kind of this adjective of how we do it. Like this rationality that we have is like it's either loyal or it's disloyal. In a way, you know, it's either obedient or it's disobedient.
That depends on how hard your brain is trying not to deceive you.
But I don't see it as this thing that we're constantly like having to combat with, or am I choosing to be loyal to this today? I think it's simply just you're choosing to do something.
Okay, that's fair. That's totally fair. It's not like
Honestly.
every decision isn't some sort of deep existential crisis. Yeah, typically we are familiar with the decisions we're going to make before we make them, because we've already made bigger decisions, and so making smaller decisions just kind of confirms the original ones.
Monty, you keep
You know what I mean?
pushing the
Yeah.
you keep pushing the camera more towards the TV.
Oh, that's because I have my feet kicked up.
Oh yeah,
Sorry.
he just wants to show.
I'm
the world.
reclining. I'm sorry.
He just wants us to watch Bernie lose.
Oh Jesus! Don't talk about that, man.
This is exactly.
You mean America?
Let's talk about Bernie for just 1 second.
Yeah, I'm crying.
Rest
No.
in peace. Dude.
Wait, really?
I mean,
No.
I mean, I just.
Jeez,
don't-
I just kicked
I
the
know,
camera.
not he's dead.
Okay,
but like,
less of a rest in peace, more of an F.
I don't see much hope in the campaign anymore.
Yeah, you and me both.
It's kind of sad. I'm gonna cry.
First,
Okay.
my man got shafted by Hillary. Now my man got shafted by Biden.
Don't say shafted.
Why not?
Yeah, this doesn't affect the best candidate
Jack
for the
is
position.
in
Orlando
here.
gets it. Anyways, so religion is human nature. I'm just kidding.
No,
Let's get into it. I
this-
think, I
this
think
brings
that,
up a good- yeah.
I think that I think
Loyalty.
it is human nature to try to explain stuff, and religion
Oh
is
my
like
God.
immediately the first thing that you go to.
All these really do
religion
tie.
now?
But what about politics? I mean, Atlanta just said he's lost faith in the democratic process this time around.
Then
I mean,
then,
I lost faith in it
then
a long
it's-
time ago. Let's
Then
be
it's
honest.
also kind of a religion. I mean, I'm not saying that's wrong. You can, I mean, worship the democratic process.
I don't
mean,
think that's how it works.
I
I
don't
think
know
it's
about
time
that
for
one.
an
That's a tough
oligarchy. No, I'm just kidding.
you mean you think it's time for, bro? You're living in one.
I know. I'm trying to live. I just want a monarch. You know.
I'm here for you, Ryan. I'm here for you.
No, I know. I wanted to say how you're doing.
I vomit. I
He's
vomit.
about to puke.
Disgusting.
Well, I mean, you might be getting one in Trump.
God save the queen.
Trutin. Trump
Come
and
on,
Putin.
guys. Lifetime of Trump.
Trump.
Let's do it.
No, stop it. No.
King Trump.
I regret everything.
Trump, dude, might as well, dude.
King Trump, guys. If leftists don't get it, let's just go full right, baby.
Can y'all tell we aren't loyal to America?
We're loyal to the entertainment
Dude, I am
quality of this video.
loyal to extremism.
No, you stop it. Is extremism ever inherently good?
Sure.
Ask Karl Marx.
Really good. Huh.
Anyways,
I see the thought, like the cogs going off in Orlando's head when I said
No, that
that.
was an interesting question. I think so. I mean,
really?
in some ways it could be.
I wouldn't
Well,
say it's
extremism-
inherently bad.
Extremism has caused change, sometimes for better or for worse. I mean, what's the most extremist thing that happened like centuries ago? Frickin' Anna, whatever her last name is, the princess of the Byzantine Empire. She was an extremist by making epic poetry in all of Byzantine history because everything they wrote down is so boring. She's the only one that made it entertaining, and she's also credited as being the first woman historian.
Okay.
Or some of
Are you
the
related
other
to her? How did you know that?
extreme
That-
things
joking.
like Hitler killing a bunch of Jews. Also
geez.
definitely extremist. I would
And
say that's more
somehow
on the
it
negative
always
side.
comes back to the Nazis.
Because the Nazis are always a great example
Well,
for
I think-
everything, dude. They've got they hit like every plot point.
Are they an example of loyalty?
Absolutely,
the
yes.
Nazis were
100%.
totally loyal.
Totally.
So then loyalty isn't always a good thing.
No, it's not.
No,
no
never.
one said it was.
Blind loyalty can be so dangerous. It's so dangerous to be blindly loyal to someone.
Really, my dog is blindly loyal to me.
Yeah, he's a
And it's
dog.
worked
And
out for
he's
him.
at your mercy.
Oh, I like that.
It's more like I'm at his, frankly.
Me.
But yeah, again, I bring this up for the following reason. A lot of people in Orlando, let me know if you feel the same way. A lot of people, when they were talking about loyalty in the club meeting on Tuesday, it was more or less in a very positive way. Like everybody kind of agreed that loyalty is a virtue, and that's not crazy. I mean, a lot of civilizations, both East and West, believe that. What was funny to me is that it also seems just as obvious that, again, loyalty could also be misleading, which is to say that, okay, put it this way. If you trust the wrong leader, but you abide obediently by that leader and you choose the leader, especially democratically, you can't really say that your loyalty is what's wrong. You could say you miscalculated in your understanding of who you voted for. That doesn't mean that loyalty is bad. I mean, if the person that you voted for turns out to do great things, then your loyalty is clearly rewarded. So loyalty itself has to do with the person putting faith in something or someone or some idea. If that's the case, then the question of whether or not the ideas are good or bad or the people are good or bad is not really what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the willingness to subject yourself and really commit yourself to any relationship, maybe marriage, any sort of friendship, any sort of community, any sort of devotional worship. If that quality, the willingness for a human being to surrender his or her autonomy on some things for the sake of a greater good, That's what loyalty is.
So-
And so that's why it's difficult to say that loyalty has to be selfish, because on some level, this self-sacrifice has to be present.
Well, here's a question,
Yes.
Nancy. I don't think.
Please.
Is it possible that loyalty for like having true loyalty to someone else really exists?
Cut his
To
mic.
what extent? To what extent do you not have loyalty for yourself and like all the decisions that you make? You know,
Yeah, how you disloyal
like
to yourself.
literally when you're saying something like, "Oh, I'm loyal to God." Well, aren't you just being loyal to yourself that you want to go to heaven?
That's just what I was saying, where
great
like
telling.
loyalty can be
Earlier, man.
inherently
Big
selfish.
Yeah, but I don't think everybody's
And so,
like that.
I know I know what you're saying,
Yeah.
Nancy, but I think even when you could say
Faith.
something, even when you could say something like this, "Oh, I'm a soldier. I'm gonna go and die for my country," you could say, "Oh, well, that's self-sacrifice." But aren't you kind of being selfish that you're trying to abide by your personal morals? I know that's kind of ridiculous
No,
to say,
no.
but
Are you referring to Bo Bergdahl?
He was just talking about this earlier. Where like,
oh no, not Bo Bergdahl.
I think that's a good example of what you're describing.
But that's the point I'm trying to make, though. Is
I
that
see,
like,
yeah.
does it really exist to have this loyalty to others? Or are you just not being loyal to yourself in some way, shape, or form?
Because you're choosing where you put your loyalties.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
no, that's a great
hey
question.
guys, so I was here for 10 minutes. That's more than enough.
What are you, crazy?
I'm trying to leave.
No,
you.
Don't
I-
go
I gotta-
anywhere.
I'm
Actually,
gonna tape you to the chair.
I got to do some studying. I have like a freaking exam coming up.
Dude, just
so,
study here.
Um,
Is this all? Isn't this like all the studying you need?
and I'm kind of hungry too. So.
I will buy you
but
food.
No,
Dusty
no,
will buy you
it's
lunch.
okay, guys. It's okay. So
Dusty will buy us all
I'm
lunch.
sorry, guys.
I'm
Lunch
not
on
buying you
Dusty.
lunch,
That
man,
sounds
so
like
you
a
can
good time.
go
I'm
lose some weight.
glad, Dusty. You know, I'll be here next show for sure.
Okay, sounds
bet.
good. Thanks for
If-
dropping by, Orlando.
But
I
no,
actually
no,
might
no.
have to leave.
Before I go, guys, I want to say
Next
shout
show.
out to Park. We're gonna have a
Thank
collaboration
you.
next meeting, and it's actually gonna be a cool collaboration because we're gonna have free smoothies there, provided by Texas Nutrition.
Yeah, that's
I'm only
that's
coming-
Orlando's
Shout out-
doing.
Shout out to them. So yeah, make sure you guys come by.
Loyal to Park.
Even if you don't like Park, get some smoothies. You know, even if you don't like smoothies, I guess come for Park. Whatever.
And Park is Pride at Richland College. We'll be actually, and I don't exactly know the details, but unlike most meetings, we'll be participating in
Yeah.
some sort of exercise.
We'll actually have an activity so
Yes,
that we'll
yeah.
be talking about gender roles and gender identity versus binary is what they called it.
Right.
So basically, we're going to have this activity where we're going to actually, we're going to have a series of questions to ask people. It's going to be anonymous. We're going to kind of have a hierarchy as to like, oh, is this important to you? If this is important to you, go to this side of the room, so on and so forth. It's going to be kind of interesting.
That sounds great, actually.
Yeah.
Cool. And of course, again, Orlando hit me up earlier. He was just like, "Did you ignore something that went to the Instagram account?"
Yes.
And I was like, "Yeah, I think it was spam because it was some email, like, or I don't know, email. I'm such a boomer. It was some message story. Is that what they're called?" And they were like, "They're like, hey, let us. We're some. What did they say? We're some Texas-based.
Yeah, they're Texas-based. Well, they're here, actually, really, really close to Richland.
Right.
And they were offering us free smoothies, and then Manzi just opened it, and I'm like, wait, what? Like, how did you just miss this right now?
'Cause I
Free
thought it was spam." And then Orlando's like, "Hang on, let me handle it." And then he gets back to me later. He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna have a bunch of free smoothies at the meeting." I was like,
Yeah,
"What?
it's
Really?"
Awesome, yeah. I'm about to go get the flyers. I'm gonna go put them around campus, hopefully to
Cool.
attract more people. But
Yeah, bring them to the Chronicle.
Yeah,
And
enjoy
give the
your
nine-
studying.
well, I
Yeah.
mean that and studying,
What are you studying for?
right? Calculus.
Oh my God!
And
Good
yeah,
luck.
tough one.
I cry.
So
I
yeah,
cry.
exactly.
And before he leaves, let's just say this: we shouted him out at the meeting on Tuesday, but Orlando was accepted into a very highly competitive, very difficult undergraduate philosophy student workshop taking place at the University of Texas at Austin at the beginning of April. Very, very happy for him, very proud of him, but he deserves it for sure. And yeah, if you embarrass us, don't come back.
All
No, I'm
right,
joking. I'm joking.
I want to say thanks to you, Manzi, because I think honestly it was all you're doing mostly. I took
Not
a look
really.
at the people that were going, and it's mostly people from university, so I kind of felt kind of special. I was like, oh,
Yeah, I mean, you are special, Orlando.
oh wow.
You
And-
are.
okay.
Sorry, not you, Dusty, right? But
No,
Orlando.
no, it's fine. I agree. I love Orlando more than I love
I
myself.
feel like an adopted child right now. That's
it's
what.
not true. I think look. All I care about is that you're gonna really enjoy your time there. And I think you will. Orlando comes in here and he has these conversations with us, and he's just like, okay, well, let me just drop some science here
Okay.
because they're just flying around everywhere with no direction. You're gonna go, I'm joking, but he's not correcting me. Interesting.
Oh my gosh.
You're going to go to a workshop where it's going to be a lot of really good conversations, and people are just going to be wanting to remain in contact with you.
Yeah.
You're going to be there, and you're going to find individuals who are like-minded, maybe not in terms of what you think versus what they think, but you all agree this stuff's really important.
Yeah.
I think that's really going to be
So,
tremendous.
since we're talking so much about me, I kind of want to stop that. I want to give a shout out to Ryan. You guys should check out his Instagram page.
No.
He's like always
really?
posting these really awesome videos about like mythology. I'm like, oh, man,
I
that's
didn't
so
know that.
dope. Yes.
Oh, cool.
Check him out.
No. Okay.
Yes,
That's
yes.
literally a new thing I was doing. The rest is all just crappy memes, I
don't
swear.
care, man. It's awesome. You guys
I didn't
check
know
him
you
out.
were watching that.
Well, it's
Thank
'cause
you.
we're like following each other, so yeah. Shout out to that because I think I hardly see people with so much passion for stuff, and I think that's like you and Dusty are two of like the most like knowledgeable people and like have this true passion. It's just like you can see it burning. I'm just like, oh my gosh, these guys like I don't know. It's
I want to
awesome,
know
dude.
everything
such a
about
good liar.
everything. If you want to
I'm
hear me
loyal
go
to
off about
I'm
Greek
loyal to
mythology.
Orlando.
All right, now that we've
As
had
you
this
should
this hug fest here, I'm about to.
Yeah, for real.
to
That was
head out,
quite a love
guys.
fest.
I'm gonna cry when I get home.
Right? Like this is actually really
Me too,
sweet.
but for different reasons.
And
entirely.
Mizzy
Boy.
already knows. Mizzy, we've already had this
Yeah, we
conversation.
have.
You know?
We have a secret handshake.
Yeah,
That's all you
exactly.
need to know.
Oh.
Should we do it on camera? No.
No.
All right, guys.
I'm
Well,
not sure if that's legal.
I'm gonna call it. Okay. All right.
All right,
Sorry,
thanks for
sorry,
Orlando.
sorry I had to leave early, guys.
No
but,
worries.
yeah.
I'm glad you dropped by for a few minutes for sure.
Yeah, enjoy the rest of the show. All right.
We will.
Yeah,
I'll see you. See you next week. I'll
See
be in
you,
touch over the
Orlando.
weekend.
Bye bye Orlando. I love you.
I hate y'all.
That was the bow. Yeah,
The bow.
Orlando insists on being shy, but it's free transportation, free food. He's gonna be staying at the dorms at UT Austin. It's hosted by the philosophy department there. It's really awesome.
Man, if he complimented me and then told me to like jump off a cliff, I would definitely do it. I would do
he
anything
would
that
never
man
do
says.
that.
My mom asked me like, if you jumped off a cliff, would you like if your friends jumped off a cliff, would you do it? And
I would
was like,
jump
Mom,
off a cliff without my friends.
Mom, I'd be the first one to jump. Don't even like.
Wow. Can we get Orlando back in here? Conversation really takes a turn when he's not here.
He just
on,
left
man.
and all chaos broke loose.
So, anyways, religion.
Yeah. So back to loyalty.
Tackling religion at the Philosophy Club Radio Hour.
Oh yeah. But honestly, before we move on, I want to stick to loyalty for a second because I feel like we're making some headway here. It seems to me that based upon what Orlando just mentioned, loyalty, he seems to say, and he had a lot of people on his side at the meeting, necessitates a fear. And I think it's easy to see in many religions, historically and currently, there's a fear-based component to it. Now, if you look at the major religion in the West, which is Christianity, you see obviously there's two very different gods.
The
in
Bible
Old and New
literally says,
Testament.
fear God.
In the OT, if you look at particular psychologists such as Carl Jung, for example, Jung argues that the story of the Bible, bridging the old and new, is the attempt to make God human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it goes from a fear-based, respect-based, fire and brimstone-based thing to a more compassionate, again, empathetic. I see things from your vantage point, kind of thing.
Well,
And-
that's why it's one of my favorite stories
I-
because it is incredible. Like I love the aspect of making God more human, from where he's like this ephemeral being who will just destroy your city if you practice butt sex too much. But
okay.
it
or
bring- but it brings
any
him-
sort of sex that's not that's out
but
of
then it
marriage.
like brings him down to a human level, and I feel like Jesus Christ is kind of like the apology, I guess, or like the version like, okay, we need to do like
Right.
some good PR. We need to get this guy really out
PR.
there. He's a little bit too aggressive. Maybe just get him like a new look.
Well, that's exactly that's what I was taught in a sense of my Catholic faith when I was raised. While I was raised Catholic,
God is getting a makeover. Is that what you're saying?
while I was raised Catholic, they basically said Jesus was basically God's attempt at being human as the Son of God. That's what Jesus was. He was just God incarnated as a human being to experience it. There's many different variations of that. So
Totally.
yeah, but point is that once Jesus died and he was Trinity thing, God, yeah.
A miracle.
Yeah, and once they all mashed together, God knew what the human experience was, and he hated it. He became a softie. That's basically what they told us. Well, he didn't hate it, but Jesus made God a softie. That's what they told us.
That's what you learned. Really?
That's
why
what
I
they
love
taught us.
That's interesting.
Well, I love it so much because that's like one of my favorite stories in mythologies, when the gods come down to just like chill as a bro, see what it's like.
They see what it's like, and they're like, "Wow, this is terrible." That reminds me,
Loki even does it as a horse.
Death by Neil Gaiman, or like the Sandman comics by Neil Gaiman, where like one of the gods of the DC universe, it's the goddess of death. She has to like see what it's like to be a living human being, like once every 100 years for a day, and it's freaking amazing. She's actually my favorite fictional character in all of like everything.
Never heard of her. That's not. No, sounds interesting.
It's amazing, but also that's not entirely about loyalty. So,
Well, yeah, okay, good. Talking about the loyalty, I bring it up for the following reason: is that an attempt to, it seems like speculating, quote unquote, it seems like there is a very expressed attempt on behalf of a major world religion in an attempt to establish itself to inspire loyalty first by fear, but then by relatability on some level. So there's some sort of, you feel like you're understood rather than simply judged.
Yeah.
I really want to understand what was going on when like the first religion started popping up around Mesopotamia and all those areas, because one of the first major religions aside from, animism, which may or may not have been a thing.
Chad-based religion.
I can't with you. Yes, but okay. The Mesopotamian religion, like, what did they have? They had the goddess Ishtar. She was the goddess of beauty, sex, love, power, war. She, like, everything. She was incredible. But, like, I want to know, did they worship their gods out of fear or out of respect or out of an obligation?
Because when you like see the huge ziggurats, you think like, oh, this is really cool. No wonder someone would build that for their god because they must love them so much. But if you like look at the Egyptian pyramids, the people who built the Egyptian pyramids did that mostly like out of fear.
Why do you say that?
Because they were slaves.
Oh well,
the UFOs?
I'm talking
Who
about
built the
I'm
pyramids?
talking about the religion itself. Like in the ancient like Aztec religions, they had blood sacrifices. So because human blood would feed their sun god, and it would keep him from getting eaten by his sister, the moon goddess, and also all the stars, which were a bunch of skeleton ladies. But like,
What, you're not trying to get boned?
well, that's the thing. Would they like sacrifice humans out of fear so they could are they following that god out of fear of them being
Eaten?
by the moon
Yeah.
in darkness, or like, I'm so curious.
Yeah, I think you see that. That's really. I'm not familiar with these details, but I find them very interesting, very intriguing. I would say this: that those themes of, again, fear and fear-driven respect and worship and repentance, they're part and parcel to any religion that lasts beyond a few decades. So I think that you could safely conclude that fear was a huge driver, especially of these quote unquote more ancient / primitive religions. The whole idea of Christianity is that Christianity becomes or is rational, and maybe the rationality has to do with its, I don't want to say transforming, but we'll just say shifting slightly from a more ancient sort of religion to something that was truly innovative.
Well, like,
Mind you, in terms of fear, there's also not just like fear that God will punish you, but the fear that if you don't serve God right, or if you don't serve God in a godly way, then you will go to hell and be tortured forever, and you will live eternity in pain. That's also part of the fear that drives you to be a, I guess, Christian.
Isn't that the same thing?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, because you're fearing God damning you, as opposed to fearing
Watch your
just
mouth.
God.
in like the Old Testament.
Okay, that's fair.
In the Old Testament, God himself said an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth type of thing. But then when Jesus came along, it was all about, no, forgive your enemies. Do not, seek vengeance type of things. Like, that was a very significant difference between the two.
Because Jesus was way cooler.
Jesus was woke.
Dude, he's
Left
way
libertarians. No, I'm kidding.
Homie Jesus?
Jesus was a leftist.
No. Well, he did want people to pay their taxes.
Yeah, exactly. See,
Good point.
leftist gave food to the poor. He's a he was welfare.
Make friends with prostitutes, people. No, I'm just kidding.
So speaking of which,
Why would you just kid about that?
So Dusty, so your point is that you could fear God in terms of his omnipotence, but then you can also fear God in terms of the actual specificities of the types of torture that might happen that he will deliver you unto if you
you can.
So those
you
two
can
things.
fear the punishment that may be levied upon you. Should
Yeah,
you not fear him?
But what about the other side of it? And this is I've been trying to generate a discussion on this, for a long time, not just this week. But what about the kind of loyalty that is strictly based in love?
There's also that.
I'd
say it's,
Orlando said there isn't such.
I disagree. You could also you could worship God because you
disagree
love
with
the
Orlando?
religion. I used to be like super Christian. I loved God. I loved the Bible. I loved being in a church. I loved the idea that if you love
too.
others and if you exist as just a good, generous, and generally helpful person, you will be rewarded forever, and you'll deserve that.
Me, but at nature.
I never really had a fear of hell. I never had a fear that God would punish me. I just had a love for the religion.
Now, let's transition briefly to the nation. Now, if you just have a love of the nation, or love of freedom, or love of your fellow citizens or your community, specifically your political community, or I should say your society, we'll just say, and then say the commander-in-chief changes, is your loyalty going to change, or can you remain loyal to certain ideals that aren't necessarily, in your mind, championed by the very representative who's supposed to embody said ideals? Which is to say, is it possible to remain loyal to a country if the leader changes?
Absolutely, because the leader isn't necessarily the country.
All right,
I mean,
perfect.
you can be loyal to the ideals of a country and not be loyal to its leader. I mean,
Doesn't the leader decide what the ideals of the country are, at least in terms of initiatives?
okay,
and
maybe
actions?
I'll amend that as you can be loyal to the ideas a country was founded upon, is what I guess I meant to say.
I'm loyal to a lot of things, but most of the ideas that this country was founded upon, like very few of them, I probably am not loyal to.
I
That-
mean,
that
yeah,
is interesting.
slavery,
Well,
the oppression
let's
of
not,
native
let's not get
peoples.
into this. Only because we're running out of time, and I want to throw something else out there as well. I like your response. I like both of your responses. I guess I'll put it like this, and I'll try to make it as sort of individual as possible, I guess. Given that is the case, two things. So then, is there ever a justification for dissonance, especially political dissonance, and maybe like an even more hyper individual? Couldn't you say that the things that you're loyal to the most are the things that you can't escape from? So I think of vices and I think of addictions. I mean, you could say that if nothing else, people are loyal to their vices. People are loyal to their habits, especially their bad habits. I mean, if you are constantly engage, put it this way, if you're sacrificing everything else in lieu of the kinds of maybe vices that you are living for, then couldn't you say that your loyalty to bad things is not just, possibly setting you up for unhappiness, it's securing your it's securing your misery. So that maybe in order to become free, you have to be disloyal to certain bad habits. And can you not extrapolate that to a more political scope? Or if there are certain bad habits that a community is engaged in, should you not, again, rally against the community?
Well, yeah, that's one of the big problems that a lot of people have when they're depressed or when they have some other mental illness and they're afraid of being medicated because they're
Oh,
loyal to
interesting.
who they are,
That's interesting.
and they're afraid of the change that may come about if a pill changes them. They're afraid that that changing their physiology would change who they are as a person, and
Wow.
that's why a lot of the time people are so scared of being medicated.
That's a fascinating point, Dusty.
Yeah, they're loyal to their depression. I don't mean to insult people who refuse to medicate because
Sure.
understandable. I've been through it, but when you refuse to do that, you're being loyal to something that hurts you. It does nothing but hurt you, and you're refusing to try out something that may make you better. And if it doesn't make you better, then that's
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a good
that
way to
happens.
put it.
Well,
No, I'm sorry, go for it.
well, if you're loyal to something that hurts you, that doesn't. Well, no, that is based off of fear. But if it's something like an internal problem, like depression or mental illness, that doesn't sound like a relationship that is loyal so much more as it is just flat out oppressive.
It's
Well,
not
yeah,
healthy,
it's your loyalty is because you're being oppressed.
Well, then
That
that's
you're internalizing your
that's
oppression.
not loyalty. Like, no one chooses to just keep that in.
No, they don't choose. It's not a choice.
Then it's not
Okay.
loyalty. I feel like loyalty in itself is always a choice.
Implies choice. Yeah. Well, and I guess the choice would be, and again, it depends on your perspective, but again, do you feel like the real me, quote unquote, authentically speaking, is one that's not, I guess, altered by substances, even if they're prescribed medicine? Or is the real me trapped because I need how to put this, is the real me trapped behind these sort of obstacles of myself
Well,
that I need to sort of quell in order to be who I am.
That depends on how you would, I guess, go through Theseus's ship or whatever that analogy is called. Just replacing all the pieces, and is it still the ship?
The idea of like beating your vices too is also very a religious thing itself. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, I would
absolutely.
say. Yeah. But it need not be, though. I would say that too. I think it's possible for you to just, I don't mean you, I mean anybody, to be able to recognize the enhanced quality of life that comes with divorcing yourself from a vice, irregardless of one's theism or lack thereof. Right? So, I mean, you don't have to believe in a God or even be a devout believer in God or any sort of religion to recognize, well, I probably should stop, I don't know, drinking every night or something like that. Whatever the case may be. Like, you know what I mean? You don't need a religion to tell you that. I think you could recognize, one would recognize the benefits almost immediately, I figure.
Look,
unless
I was raised Catholic. That sentence was not in my vocabulary.
Fair enough. Transubstantiation. It's not really wine. Now it's Christ's blood. Bottoms up, vampires. All right.
Boy, would that count? Would it burn them?
Count
or not?
Dracula. No, sorry.
Would holy water? Like, I know holy water would hurt vampires. Would the blood of Christ hurt vampires? This is the real debate. Like,
No, because it's wine. Would the literal blood of Christ hurt a vamp? That's a great question.
That's Catholicism, though. When you go to mass,
well, it is just blessed wine, essentially. Holy water is just blessed water.
but that's not what. Here's the thing. Here, there's supposed to be. If you're a Roman Catholic, there's a miracle that happens at every mass, and the miracle is that of changing substance. Like the actual thing you have, the belief is that it actually becomes Christ's blood.
Are you telling me every priest is a Full Metal Alchemist? Transmutation. I'm
Yes,
just kidding.
that is what I'm telling you. As far as I can tell, that is what's supposed to happen. That's why if you haven't been to mass regularly, you don't take the sacraments.
Are you telling me that priests out here are practicing unregulated magics?
Hey, are you in a D&D campaign? Because I really need a voice guy.
I'm the DM lad.
God is magic.
Well, I'm trying to re-DM. Anyways.
No, wait. Was that Sarah Silverman special?
Pay me
Religion is magic?
$5 and I'll do any voice you want
No.
forever.
Wait, really?
Yes.
$5.
$5.
You can't even get a Subway sandwich here for that.
I know I couldn't. I
Yeah,
don't
$5
care.
foot long my ass.
I don't do it for the food, lad.
Give me $2 last.
I can't do it. I can't do voice. I can't even come close. All right, so we're running out of time here. Actually, we're over time. But any final thoughts on loyalty?
This is way more complicated than I was expecting it to be. What an interesting conversation.
I appreciate that. Thank
Be
you.
loyal to nature, and also watch Castlevania Season 3 on Netflix, out now. No.
We're not sponsored by Netflix. Views
not. It's
expressed
just a
on
really
this
good
show
show.
are
Whoa,
are
whoa. I got something to say.
Oh,
please do.
oh.
Okay, so
Here's the mic's off.
Okay, I'll say this about loyalty, because I do agree. It's been an interesting conversation, because I think that for a lot of students, they don't think of loyalty in all these different dimensions. And I think it's important to see just how flexible loyalty is.
Because
I'm trying not
realistically,
to. I'm trying to talk in that
many,
burp.
in that many
Please.
perspectives. Realistically, like when you take a job and you're saying I'm loyal to this job, it's just because you're trying to get the bag, or if you're going to be a teacher
definitely-
and you're going to be loyal to a university, it's just like it's because they employ me.
I'm definitely loyal to Target. They've been treating me well.
Yeah, and it's it's a good point. It's a good point.
And also customer loyalty. I mean, when you're I know as a worker, but when you're like buying from Starbucks or wherever your preferred coffee shop is, and they always make your espresso just right, you're loyal to them, and you're not going to go somewhere else.
Lord knows
It's
I
like a
would.
simple fact of life.
That's a good point. Yeah, you begin to trust. Again, maybe loyalty equals trust.
Except for that one time they gave me regular milk instead of soy, and I was dying in the bathroom at work for 2 hours, but we're not going to talk about that.
I think what did come up actually, interestingly enough, is that again, it was Super Tuesday when we had the philosophy club, so people were thinking politically appropriately enough, and this idea is that how do people vote? And I threw out the idea or the suggestion that most people vote with their wallets. They're going to vote based upon the policies that will allow them the greatest financial flexibility or greatest financial resources. And nobody there was judging that.
Like, fair,
position. But it's also like, well, if that is where your loyalties lie, well, isn't that going to determine where other maybe smaller loyalties lie?
I mean, that's where my loyalty goes in terms of, well, no. I mean, like, in terms of thinking of, like, you can waste my energy, I can get that back. You can waste my money, I can get that back. Do not waste my time.
Fair. Okay, fair
not
enough.
waste. I mean, money itself is, like, also kind of time because, like, I spent time out of my life to get this money, but at least I can get it back. Time in of itself, especially if it's my free time, do not waste it. I will hunt you down.
Yeah, because your time is literally given an hourly wage. But let me ask you this. Okay, so you work at Target. Dusty, I'm not sure if you're employed. But
No, I'm unemployed as hell.
okay, that seems appropriate.
Being
that
unemployed is
sounds right.
leftist praxis.
I hate you.
Well, let me ask you something, Ryan. Do you ever feel torn if somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, I know the coupon's like a day expired, but come on, Ryan, you don't get a cut of Target. You're not Target representation."
I take that coupon out their hand and I rip it in front of their face like it was their firstborn child.
Bet you do.
I rip their firstborn child in front of their face.
Like it was a coupon.
Well, because it's like sometimes employees are put on the spot. It's like who are you, or even it's like, are you loyal to your supervisor, or are you loyal to the CEO, or are you loyal to
This
your
idea of altruism.
Yes, exactly. I feel like questions of loyalty abound with every day of our lives, and it's like I just don't feel as though a lot of people think of it in those terms.
That's because a
It's
lot of the
foiling.
time it's like a battle between, if you're going to think about it, it's a battle between like
we're
rationality
here.
and your ideology. It's a battle between what really happens and your morals, how you follow life, as opposed to what happens to you.
I think that's a really solid way to put it. All right, shall we
Well-
wrap up? I guess those are final thoughts. Do you want to read the
Yeah, it's
disclaimer?
4:11. We better get out of here before the Ronald McDonald people come in next.
Yep, before the whatever Ronald McDonald people.
are you
I have
talking
been
Rondo Land?
I have been Dusty Hill. This has been Philosophy Radio Hour with Professor Jeff Manzi.
Philosophy
and
Club
Ryan.
Radio Hour. Please get the title right.
Ryan
Okay,
Cruz,
fine.
and I'm still dead inside.
And
PCRH.
Ryan Cruz is still dead inside.
Oh.
Views expressed on this show are. What are you going to say, Manzi?
Real quick, before I forget, I meant to say this. I want to shout out everybody that came to the Equity and Inclusion Richland discussion panels last
Dang it.
Wednesday and Thursday.
Oh, was that in the Brazos Gallery?
It was in
When
the
that
Brazos
picture?
Gallery. Yeah, I watched you walk by, actually, Dusty.
Yeah, I went to one. I
And
went to
not
one
even
of
give
those.
us a second look.
I totally would have come if it wasn't for the fact that I didn't want to.
It's because you're short,
kidding.
man.
I'm just
I
kidding.
can't see
Thank you
you.
for that. That makes two of us. It was again. It was the panel was myself, Jeff Manzi, philosophy. Professor John Ewing, who is the religion instructor here,
Religion.
Aditya Samarth, who is a humanities instructor here, and then Joan Z, who is she teaches ESOL. It was really good. We talked about the HBO produced documentary "I Am Evidence," a lot of moral, philosophical, theological focuses, foci, but we honed in on faith-based communities. It was a really great discussion, both Wednesday and Thursday. Appreciate everybody that came out. We had over 100 people come out, if you add up the totals. So, yeah, shout out to that. And again, shout out to, I believe, John, right now, John Ewing is en route with the Phi Theta Kappa officers for the semester or the yearly conference. So, appreciate those people. And also shout out to Erica Terrell, government faculty, who stepped in last minute because Adita on Thursday had to fly to London to be with her son. And Erica really stepped in literally seconds before the panel started. So shout out to all the philosophy students who came out to that. And, of course, shout out to Park, Pride at Richland College, and their advisor, Christopher, and the student officers for organizing the collaboration that's going to happen on Tuesday. Again, we haven't collaborated with Park since spring 2018, where we had a tie-dye fundraiser. So it's great that we're collaborating again, and I hope you all can attend. Again, the Philosophy Club meets every Tuesday from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. in EO 32, El Paso Hall Room 32. And, yeah, I want to make sure we plug that. The Philosophy Club Radio Hour, which is an extension of the Philosophy Club proper, records every Thursday from 3:30, generally, hopefully, from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. every Thursday. Sometimes we start a little late. Don't hold that against us. Hold it against Jack Fletcher.
Boy, hey. You got any shout-outs, Ryan?
Please don't follow my Instagram like Orlando said.
Alrighty. You are listening to KDUX Web Radio, broadcast live from Richland College in Dallas, Texas.
Say donkey.
That's
We are the voice of Richland College.
Say donkey.
Views expressed on this show are my own unless otherwise stated and do not reflect the opinion of KDUX Web Radio, Richland College, or the DCCCD. Have
Say-
a wonderful evening. This has been Philosophy Club Radio Hour, and we got a little saying. What is it, Manzi?
Sing Smash Mouth.
Think about it.